Okay, this is my econ. Okay, this is my econ test, and today I'll be explaining um, economic theories of Keynes and Hayek, but specifically the pros and cons of each. Which, for this, it's somewhat subjective because it's mostly going to be my opinion, like which one I agree with more than the other, which one I agree with. Um, and also a little bit of the circumstances. Uh, Frederick von August von Hayek, full name. John Maynard Keynes, full name. I'm pretty sure. Hayek wants to set the markets free. He's for free market, which I'm as well. Um, and Hayek and Keynes both have different views on the boom and bust cycle, and I'd say I'm generally more on Hayek's side. He blames it on low interest rates. He believes it gets started with an expansion of credit because of the Fed setting rates low, like interest rates, and I agree. I think that's like the main thing that the like main factor. Like I do agree it starts it, like it actually I'd say sparks it, in my opinion. Um in the expansion, he said he believes that the expansion of credit, the money's confused for real loanable funds, and I also agree because ultimately it just ends up backfiring in your face. Um he believes it's just inflation driving people to invest in new projects like house construction, for example, which is like he sees as the boom, as it being planted for future, as seeds being planted for future destruction, and I also agree with that. I don't think there's really much else, many other factors, and I think one that I strongly, especially agree on, is that stimulus will make it worse. Like if you try to fix it. And to me, honestly, I don't think stimulus is a good idea at all. Um, this goes against what Keynes said. Um, he was very much for stimulus, at least in like using it to try and save a crashing economy, and doing this through aggregate demand, which Hayek is against and I'm also against. Um, because I think Hayek made a good point that you know, he kind of said like in a way it ignores human action and motivation, and that it's like kind of used as justification for payouts and bailouts, and will lead to debt. Maybe not at first, but still will lead to debt, which I definitely agree with. And he believes that if you want to invest, you have to save first, and that the market coordinates time with interest. And I believe this as well. And it contradicts Keynes because he's not for spending at all, which I think is like really stupid, honestly. But I can't just keep it at that. So let me explain. Um, he, I mean, he does. I think you need the money for growth. Like, you need to have enough like resources, so you need to save. You need to save the money and have enough, and like to have some to pay. But I think you should also still like even also like if you want to have some left. Um, but I do think like Keynes made a decent point there, which I'm pretty sure is true because we covered it, and I think we covered it in class, and it seems legit that saving like thrift, which is saving carefully, like using resources carefully and wisely, not wastefully, is paradoxical because if you save money, there will be no economic growth, and it's like not enough consumer spending. Like maybe rates will change, and then maybe inflation will rise. Uh, it definitely could create problems, but I still don't think I'm not like completely against it. Like I think no saving is just stupid, in my opinion, which is what it sounded like Keynes was kind of saying. Um, he believes that capital structure is key, and I'd say I somewhat agree with that, and that malinvestments wreck the economy, which I definitely agree with. Hayek said this. Um, I did find it like honestly don't like this Keynes dude, but I'm not gonna like let that make me be biased or whatever, because I do think he had like at least a good point here and there, and at least I don't know, just like interesting his like thoughts, you know, his opinions and like beliefs or whatever. Like for example, he blamed the boom bust cycle on animal spirits, which is a which it basically it's like psychological, instinctual, emotional factors that drive economic decisions and behavior, especially in the face like of uncertainty. Um, and of course, it's possible that this could impact the economy overall. Well, overall economic activity, which then if obviously impacts impacts the economy. Um, and I found it interesting, an interesting financial slash economic metaphor because it kind of reminded me of why Greek tragedies existed, because it wasn't like, I think it was more specifically political, like before people have to vote, like having them watch a Greek tragedy to like kind of get their emotions, quote unquote, purge them out. Um, he believes business is driven by animal spirits, and that they affect capital investment, income, and growth. He uh, says the state should fill the gap, like after a recession or like the boom, with stimulus checks, both monetary and fiscal. And I don't agree, at least not both or like all of them. And that he believes that public works in digging niches, which is a metaphorical economic stimulus, basically, have the same effect as stimulus checks. And to me, there was also some cons in that because um, I don't know. It doesn't. It sounds like like kind of bad because it says because apparently digging ditches is like often used to illustrate potential pitfalls of unproductive public spending and refers to government projects that are purely artificial, creating jobs without adding any real value to the economy. Um, so yeah, and then I think this kind of goes more specifically into Keynes's uh, macroeconomics thoughts. Um, that the solution, at least when there's persistent unemployment after an economy crash, is increasing aggregate demand. Uh, and I already mentioned I'm against this because I'm on Hayek's side with that. And he thinks increasing aggregate demand positively affects CIG, um, consumption, investment, government spending. Although technically it's CIG, XM being net exports, which is the difference between a country's exports and a country's imports. The formula essentially represents the exponential approach to calculating a country's GDP and sums up all the spending within the economy to arrive at the total value of goods and services produced. He believes that after increasing aggregate demand, he can keep that total growing. He believes that no matter the reason, if the economy's circular flow is getting low, government spending should be increased for stimulus. Um, and yeah, I don't think it'd be helpful to follow the formula in that way, in that, like, believing that, which Hayek doesn't, just as I don't. Um, and also, like, it seemed he was kind of too much for stimulus, because he says that if the economy's circular flow is getting low, government spending should be increased for stimulus. The economy's circular flow. And some on that note, some I did list like some stimulus measures, but not a lot of them didn't really sound useful and also like risky. For example, quantitative easing and stimulus checks. Uh, he also believes if the economy's circular flow is getting low, then people should forget about saving. That was where he specifically had that idea. But I still think forgetting about saving, even in that case, is still a bad idea. Even though it is somewhat paradoxical, you could say. But yeah, that's all I have for now. But there will be a part two because I have another question I'm going to answer. Econ test. Well, final part two. Um, I apologize if there's any like static in the first part. I forgot I had like my finger on the mic, unfortunately. But hopefully it turns out okay because I don't really want to do it again. But anyways, uh, the other question I was gonna answer. The first one was number 1 on the sheet. This one is number 3. Explain how import tariffs on steel are likely to impact supply and demand for new construction in the USA. Um, so I think they're likely to impact new construction in the USA, the supply and demand for it, by, well, um, it costs more. Um, and it kind of, it addressed concerns like the the rates on the import tariffs on steel and aluminum actually were recently the rates were recently increased to 50% for most countries in the US on the 4th, which was 2 days ago, June 4th, 2025. Um so that was doubled from 25%, which was since 1962, I'm pretty sure. Um and they were imposed under Section 232, which allows the president to restrict imports if they threaten national security. Um, but it raised national security concerns. Um, the tariffs were enacted to address concerns about global steel and aluminum capacity, which the administration believed were harming U.S. steel and aluminum producers. Um, there had been exemptions and agreements that were terminated. Uh, like, because, for example, previously some countries have been granted exemptions or alternative agreements, but those were terminated. Um, all of them, I'm pretty sure. And there was also derivative products included that the tariffs apply to. There's also that, um, which is like unnecessary. Um, for example, derivative products of that that is of steel and aluminum, such as nails and car body stampings, because we don't necessarily need that. Like I think like it's kind of harmful. At least like we don't need the car body stampings. I wouldn't think. Um, that I mean, if it's what it sounds like, and then and anyways, still, and then the nails maybe so, but like it can be kind of harmful. Like the tariffs applying to them because um the tariffs make it more expensive. um I mean, you would you should expect, honestly. The tariffs have been criticized for potentially increasing costs for American manufacturers who rely on steel and aluminum potentially leading to job losses. So that would probably result in like less steel and aluminum being produced. Um, and also, apparently, trading partners not have only expressed concerns, but have also considered retaliating, um, retaliatory measures, which I'm not sure of, but that's not that shouldn't have to happen. It's not good, and that shouldn't have to happen. Um, and so yeah, less producing, um, less jobs, like, and so less people like producing steel and aluminum, um, and retaliation, like maybe strikes, uh, or America could even be on its way to a real level revolution just based on a lot of what's been happening. Although there's not necessarily any signs of it. I feel like people are lazy nowadays, and now it's just they sit back and be frustrated, and then just like go and bitch on the internet. But yeah, I don't know. And then because of that, so because of that, there'll be less supply, and because of the less supply, there'll like be more demand. You know, meaning like there'll because there won't be as much, which could which means less, um, which less for new construction. Like you might not have enough to for like new construction, and so like the demand for that would increase. And this is all because of the import tariffs. And I think doubling them was, I think that's honestly a bit frightening that they doubled from 25% to 50%. And I think that is not good. So, yeah. But this is America. This is America now, 2024 to 2025, and so on. Unless President Trump gets impeached, honestly, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. That was kind of extra. My thoughts on this kind of ended previously. I'm just not happy with how America is right now. I think it could be a lot better. And also, it's funny, Elon Musk and Trump arguing over like nothing. Like I don't know what even sparked it, but that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. It's kind of funny because it's like they're two grown men, and it's like just them, Elon Musk like lashing out, and then you know they're kind of arguing and like belittling and wise. It's like back and forth. It's like childish. I'm not saying Elon Musk is lied, but I think everyone knows. At least everyone who's not everyone who has at least like half a brain knows Trump has lied, and he's said a lie about Elon Musk, um, already after this like recent beef. But yeah, that's beyond my what I had to say. But for the test thing, but that's all. Thank you for listening.